Hey, everybody, what's going on as we welcome you once again into the Take the North podcast, along with Dan Wiederer of the Chicago Tribune and frequent score contributor. I am Mark Grote of Chicago Sports Radio 670 The Score. Danny boy, what's going on, my friend?
Not a whole lot. It's supposed to be spring, I think, right, Grote? It's like still this like weird 50 degrees gray bite. We got a rookie camp coming up later this week, and I'm hoping that we don't have to be dressing like it's the middle of fall out there.
I am tired of every day having to put on something like I'm wearing right now. If you're watching us on YouTube or wherever you might watch the video, having to wear a hoodie just about every day. Yeah, it is ridiculous. It's time for May to become May at some point in time. And Dan is right. This weekend always, always, always represents hope. It is the Bears rookie minicamp when we will finally start to get to see some semblance of a workout and organization and where certain guys are playing. Colston Loveland, Luther Burden, Ozzy Trapilo, God, Shamar Turner, Ruben Hippolyte, Zay Frazier, Luke Newman, Kyle Monungai, the running back, will all be in effect starting on Friday. Always something to look forward to. And this, in this case, Dan, we will be watching very specifically to see how they handle, in particular, Ozzy Trapilo. It looks like he's going to work out on the left side. Will they move him around? What will Darnell Wright do? Like I said, we won't see Darnell Wright, but what will they do? There are actually things that will be noted this week that could be of consequence.
Yeah, and look, like we have to keep it within the proper frame. We do know that Colston Loveland will not be participating because of the shoulder injury that he has. Every rookie minicamp that doesn't have a drafted quarterback tends to have its bumps. You've got some guys that you never really heard of taking snaps and trying to keep the thing moving along. But over 3 days, we'll get a feel kind of for what each of these rookies looks like on a practice field in a Bears uniform. And there's always something that catches your eye within that weekend. I think obviously here we're going to be with our eyes on the offensive tackle, Ozzy Trapilo, and trying to figure out, okay, where are they starting him in this rookie camp? What are they looking at as they kind of watch him move around for the first time and decide which side that he might want to take the most reps at? And we'll get to hear from coaches this weekend too. So you'll have the coordinators talking to us, which will give us some of their perspective on both the rookie camp as well as what happened in the draft. And it's always good to kind of see how coach's vision marries up with transactions that were made. And so we'll get some more feel for that as we get into Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
The opinions continue to vary on the Bears offensive line, just from people that I've talked to on the record and off the record. And the guy that we talked to on the record today was James Big Cat Williams, of course, one of the Bears' really great right tackles right after the ending of the 80s Bears and into the 90s. The guy was around forever, but we asked him straight up today is it a big deal for either of these guys, whether it's Ozzy Trapilo, whether it is Darnell Wright, to go from where they are most comfortable, both of them, on the right side to the left side. It's the first time I've heard in a while somebody just say straight up, yeah, it would be, it's okay. They both train there. This is what offensive linemen do in these days. They train at both positions. Both have obviously played at left tackle in their college careers.
Yeah.
And so he said, no big deal. He's like, Trapilo, yeah, absolutely. Give him a shot there, especially if you're interested in replacing Braxton Jones. And, like, just for reference for people, like James Big Cat Williams was the guy who played defense for a while, ended up being switched to offensive line, but he said there was no way he personally could have done that, moved from the right side to the left side, because it's a totally different like feel in terms of where you are mentally in your head. You can get mixed up very easily. But he said the reason that he couldn't do it is because he didn't have the experience doing it in college, whereas both of these guys do. So it's very interesting and very real that we could see one of those guys over on the left side.
I think it's important to note that they both did play in college, as we've done previously, and that Darnell's move in Knoxville was not because he was playing poorly on the left side. It's because that's what they needed help at, and that's what he volunteered to do, which I think was a big deal. And obviously you mentioned Trapilo's got experience there as well. I think it's kind of a case-by-case basis, because I think it was Charles Leno who, when he came in as a rookie, was taking some reps at right. And even in a preseason game, took some reps at right and was a disaster. And you watched it and you're like, oh man, this guy cannot play in the pros. And then he went over to the left side and started for like 8 years, right? Like, and was pretty good. And then he got paid when he left Chicago and went to Washington. And so, yeah, it is a case by case basis. I think it'll be interesting to talk to Trapilo. I think we get him on Thursday to get his kind of feel for what he likes about the left side, what he likes about the right side, how he manages the transition between both sides. You know, some people handle it better than others, and that's going to be part of what the Bears have to feel out with the coaching staff kind of overseeing the whole thing.
I'm really interested to talk to Luther Burden for like, so this would be the third time officially that we will have gotten to hear from, speak to Luther Burden and see if he's warmed up a little bit more to the idea that he's here. Not that he has a problem being here, but obviously had a problem being a second round pick, and what he is saying, what if they have told him, where he may fit in, because he's just really such an interesting prospect in terms of what he can do on the field. And some of it is very similar to what DJ Moore can do on the field, at least in theory. Give this guy, put him in, short space and let him do things so that you could have some really serious dueling weapons on that offensive side.
Before we get out of the Luther Burden topic, remind me to circle back with you here on this very podcast right now to talk about a conversation that you were not expecting today, a very big detour, and it's gonna surprise you for a minute. But I do think I do think it's gonna be fun to see what Luther Burden looks like. Again, this is gonna be against competition that's not quite NFL starter caliber this weekend, but you want to see with your eyes, like, what does that explosion look like? What happens when he catches a pass? How does it look when he's got the ball in his hands? There's going to be an eye test, to watching that for the first time up close and seeing what that strength, speed, agility looks like. There's been so much talk since he was drafted less than 2 weeks ago about what he can be, right? And some of the questions that follow him into the league. He, I'm sure, is aware of some of this stuff. For a guy that obviously was hyper aware after the first round of the draft that he had been snubbed and went to the Missouri football facility to go work out. This is a guy that has that edge, that chip on his shoulder, and you would expect him to kind of walk in to minicamp for the rookies this weekend with purpose, right? And for that to show across 3 days there at Haugh. And then if that happens, then all of a sudden we'll get a feel for where things are headed.
Yeah, so I put him down probably as most fascinating guy as we go into this weekend in terms of what he's going to be. And like you said, we're not going to find out a bunch of real things about how this all looks on the field, but it is just worth noting that Burden has been a little bit uneasy at times. So we will see what that looks like. Of course, Shamar Turner will be fun. It's those 4, 5, 6, and 7 guys that if they are good, then you have some sort of bonus. And the guy that I have circled he's an easy guy to circle because he's Zay Frazier and he's 6'3" and he's got size and you've got a really good secondary, but you do have a player in Tyreek Stevenson who we still don't know exactly how they feel about him. The things that they have said about Tyreek Stevenson seem to indicate that he's going to get a fresh start and they still believe in his talent. And quite frankly, I believe in the guy's talent. He had a bad year last year, but I do wonder how Zay Frazier fits into this thing outside of special teams.
Look, we heard at the end of draft weekend that this was a player that was endorsed by Al Harris, the defensive backs coach for the Bears, is a player that Dennis Allen feels like he can work with because the traits are there and the measurements are there and the length is there and all the things that you want out of a corner in this defense are there. And so he's going to get an opportunity, obviously beyond this weekend to prove that he has the ability to climb the ladder a little bit. And so you start to look at it, this is a defense, again, that's going to play a lot of man coverage. And so you're going to be wanting to see when those moments occur, no matter who the competition is against. What does he look like? What does he look like when he plays press man? How does he kind of mirror receivers, anticipate routes, all those types of things? Learning experience coming up for Zay Frazier, but certainly another guy that you want to see a bunch out of.
Yeah, and then everybody's favorite 7th round pick, Kyle Monangai. It's funny, man. I was saying it on the radio today. Chicago loves a second string quarterback, the backup quarterback, always the most popular guy in Chicago. Well, maybe not anymore. And for some reason, 7th round running backs or late round running backs, I have so many people like, I think there's a lot of rooting for Kyle Monangai. Of course I want Kyle Monangai to be successful, but there is no way to assume that a 7th round pick is going to be successful. Maybe as a role player, as a very distinct roles, and maybe I'll be surprised, but it seems like there's a lot of disproportional love right now for Kyle Monungai.
Very, very, very short list of running backs taken in the 7th round who have gone on to be anything in the NFL, right? Beyond just a role player. You know, there's I got a short list here that includes Isaiah Pacheco, who's a guy that Charles Davis likened him to the other day. So that's your best case comp.
Yeah.
You know, Latavius Murray's on that list, Alfred Morris on that list, Peyton Hillis, just to name a few, Ahmad Bradshaw, another one. Those are guys taken in either the 6th or 7th round. That ultimately you remember their names. And so it is a very steep climb for Kyle Monungai to suddenly become something, right? But obviously draft hype gets going. You add him to an offense that's got a lot of other pieces. You put him with a play caller that knows how to use some things, and people are going to have intrigue until they no longer have it. I'm not going to rain on Kyle Monungai's parade until we get to the end of the preseason. We'll let him have his opportunity, and then we'll see what it looks like in front of us. But again, it is very, very, very it's a long shot for guys with that draft pedigree to become suddenly big impact making starters for the football team they play for.
Are you saying that I'm raining on Kyle Monungai's parade? Is that
no.
What you're trying to say? Okay.
I'm not. No, I'm saying we're not going to do that yet.
Okay.
Labor Day weekend, we may be like, oh, he's going to be a great practice squad addition as they figure out the rest of this roster and get things going. But we'll see. I mean, look, like he does get a ton of praise from people in the know for his character, football character, his ability to attack this thing the way it's meant to be attacked. And so you always give those guys opportunity. Don't put them in a box and let them see what they can prove.
Yeah, the hyperbole has just been real. I probably wouldn't even have brought it up. There's been too many people. I'd be like, Grote, yo, this guy's going to be great.
Right.
Okay.
No, and I'm and that's our job, right? Is to every once in a while put the frame around it and let people know, like, okay, let's get through a couple weeks of practice before we start getting on that hype train and pulling the horn. Toot-toot.
We don't pander on this show, do we, Dan Wiederer? We don't do that.
Very, 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 very rarely, except when we're telling people how smart our audience is and how sophisticated and fun and entertaining this audience is. So that's when we pander, and especially when we get them in a live audience, then we just say all sorts of great things about the audience. Speaking
of pandering to the audience, I got a couple of audience things here that I thought I was going to do this towards the end, but I think this is a good time. This one from Shahid Johnson says, I demand more bonanzas.
Oh, I love it.
Great work, guys. The Bears. So we've done 2 bonanzas now. Did you do bonanzas when David Haugh was the co-host?
Have never done a bonanza. Those are the first 2 bonanzas.
Wow. Okay. Well, I am honored to know that. Okay. So we've got to do more bonanzas. I think when would be our next bonanza? Like, I think a training camp bonanza.
I was going to say I'm up for bonanzas, but the key here is also not overusing them to the point where we get over bonanza. So I do think training. I think you're right about the training camp one. Like check-in day, a training camp right before we start there, and we go in with a 25 topic bonanza. We can pull that off for sure.
The 25-minute bonanza, by the way, and this leads into the next comment from another listener to the Take the North podcast. And we appreciate everybody who listens and watches this podcast. It said, because it was 90 minutes and it was like, wow, that's definitely the longest podcast I've ever done in my life. And this one said, great show, guys. Pacing was great. 90 minutes flew by. We got away with a 90-minute podcast, Dan. What do you think about that?
I love it. And that's why the experiment was worthwhile, was to see if we could pack a ton of information into a lot of time and make it feel like people had just sat down, and then to get some of the feedback we've gotten, it's been encouraging. YouTube comments have been encouraging. Got a lot of comments recently about the guests we had on last week with both Charles Davis and Cassie Carlson joining us. So fun to see that momentum kind of building and pushing in the right direction, and people responding to some of the things that we're trying out.
People did praise you too for getting us back on track during the Charles Davis interview when I was taking it down the 85. I mean, I need to be checked when that happens.
Charles took that there to start with. I mean, that was right out of the gates that he was the one that opened the door to the cold tub time machine, and then off we went, right? Like, and then then we just had to reset the dial and get back to 2025. But that's why the cold tub time machine is here. It's for us to take those journeys. Like Bill and Ted didn't learn about American history by sitting in a classroom. They got in the time machine.
They got in the time machine. You're right. And we're glad that we're able to co-opt the hot tub time machine.
Yeah.
Let's talk, Daniel, about Bears Packers.
Shall we?
No.
Not yet. Not
wanna talk
yet,
about
because
Bears
I got to go
Packers
back
yet?
to this Luther Burden discussion before we get on the Bears
Oh, you
Packers
wanna do
thing.
I thought you wanted to do that at the end. Okay, so
No,
here's your detour. Okay, go
we're
ahead.
we're gonna take the detour now. I'm putting on the turn signal, and you're
I
like,
got
Dad, where
it.
are we getting off at? Why are we
I
getting
had
off
it
on this
look,
exit?
detour, I had it written down right there, but for
All
the
right.
end. Okay.
So this starts with you, and it mostly involves me, but it starts with your discussion about Luther Burden's eyes, which I've heard you bring up on this podcast as well as on the Score many, many times. And I'm going to take you on a detour in a minute, but I want you to tell people first about your early interpretations of Luther Burden's eyes.
His eyes say, and it's not like he's got these big, wide open eyes or anything not the Mike's like that, not the Mike Singletary eyes for reference. It's not like that. It's just they've got that I want to crush you look, but almost in a graceful way, probably because he was all dressed up. So I'm looking at him like, oh man, like you could see a man's soul when you look into the eyes. So it's hard for me to explain like really well what I'm seeing, but it is the eyes of somebody who is a killer on the field. And we've been told that once he gets on the field, man, it's over. So yeah, these deep brown, I want to beat your ass eyes is what Luther Burden has.
I love it. And I loved your description of this on the air as I was listening on the Score last week. And I was like, well, I got to bring this back because my eyes right here, they're one of my discerning characteristics, and they get me into trouble sometimes. And
you do have some eyes, don't you?
Yeah. And sometimes when I get tired, they get even worse. And so I've got 3 little separate stories to share with you, just so you don't misinterpret eyes sometimes. The first one I'm going to tell you about, this is from the professional realm. There was a blogger when I was covering ACC basketball in North Carolina by the name of Shane Ryan. He's now a published author, does a lot of his work covering golf, but he had come to the 2011 ACC tournament. You can still find this blog entry because I just pulled it up so I could read this, because I took a lot of crap for this in the weeks that followed the publishing of this. And he was basically writing about what it's like to cover the ACC tournament from the eyes of somebody that hadn't really done it and was observing how it went. Here's what he wrote about me. And then, like, don't get too far ahead of yourself with this here. He said, I had occasion to see Dan Wiederer in action this weekend. I couldn't help but notice an intense, almost maniacal look on his face as he stared at his computer. He wrote in sort of a quiet fury, and you got the sense that a gunfight wouldn't have distracted him from his task. Even if I hadn't known Dan Wiederer from Adam, I would have been struck by that look. It's the rare and unmistakable face of passion. That look isn't why he's great, but it's a product of the fact. I did not know Shane at the time, but that was one of the most embarrassing paragraphs I ever read. And it's completely wrong, because like Grote, I do this no matter what time of day it is.
Yeah,
like
you do.
I'm writing, and I look like a maniac. He said maniacal look. I had people that called me maniacal eyes for like years on end after that, because of the way this went. So
that's awesome.
Shane saw that as the unmistakable face of passion. A police officer in Prague, Czechoslovakia in the late 90s saw my eyes when I get tired or I'm sleep deprived. I get like my pupils that like things get out of whack in my eyes.
Stoner eyes. Yeah.
I look like kind of nuts. I was traveling by myself in Prague after splitting up from a group in the late 90s, right out of college. And I was stopped on a train in Czechoslovakia because I think they thought I was on drugs. Okay. Because my eyes were just tired and I was staring. And then the more that a Czechoslovakian police officer stares at you, the more nervous you get. And you're just looking at them like, oh God, what's going to happen? I don't speak the language. I'm in a foreign country. I have no friends with me. What's going to happen?
I got these eyes.
They went through all my bags, like on the middle of the train, searching for whatever, weapons, drugs, whatever it was. Even made me unscrew the lids to my contact case to make sure there was nothing in there. You talk about a heartbeat and a maniacal look in that moment of like, what's going to happen here? Like, this is pre-cell phone, right? So it's not like you can get in touch with your family and be like, hey, I'm in a Czechoslovakian prison because my eyes were maniacal today. Okay.
Dude.
Also, 2000, I guess this would have been the 2010 Final Four in Detroit. No, 2009 Final Four in Detroit. They would not let me into the Caesars in Windsor. I had 2 beers. We had gone out to dinner with a group, and we were trying to go into Caesars to do a little gambling. I had 2 beers at dinner, and they would not let me into Caesars because my eyes were apparently out of whack for the bounce
Wow.
receivers. You should have seen the volume of drunk people stumbling up the stairs and past me. They're like, yeah, go ahead. But not this crazy MFer. Look at the eyes on this guy.
Oh my God.
So sometimes these things can be a blessing that people just think that you are like the hardest worker ever. And sometimes they can get you into a lot of trouble. So just be careful with Luther because you'll never know what you're seeing.
Wow. Okay. All right. I've learned a very valuable lesson here. I mean, I've seen you working out there. You do
maniacal.
I don't know, maniacal. I mean, very intense. I would go intense. Like you pulled up the chair. You're very, nobody better bug Wiederer. Well, he's over there typing away. He's writing away. You got Big sitting right there. Sean Hammond in the area. The sun time's off to the left. Don't mess with Weedsy.
Can you imagine what would have happened to the future of your podcasting history if I had been thrown into Czechoslovakian prison at age 23?
Potash and Grote.
Sorry for the detour, but I thought that was fun.
No, that was. That's
and look, I think maybe we need to do an eye check in our next post-rookie minicamp podcast about Luther Burden, and we'll assess his eyes this weekend.
Okay, it's on. I'm sure Luther will appreciate all of it. Bears Packers now, Danny.
Yeah,
you ready for this? Okay,
yeah,
Bears,
I'm more than ready for this
one. As some people may know, that there's been some light trash talking, I suppose you could say, going back and forth between the Bears' new head coach, Ben Johnson, and the now veteran head coach of the Green Bay Packers, Matt LaFleur. And it all started during what was it? Was it Ben Johnson's
introductory press conference? 100%.
Oh my God! And hey, through the years on introduction day, there's always some sort of reference to the Packers. Famously, Lovie Smith said, "Our first goal is to beat Green Bay." It's like, no. Your first goal is to get to the playoffs and win a Super Bowl, maybe. But that's what Lovie said. Ben Johnson talking about Matt LaFleur, the head coach of the Green Bay Packers. Let us reminisce. Here's the audio.
Be quite frank with you. I kind of enjoyed beating Matt LaFleur twice a year.
Yes.
I mean, that's in response. Like Ben is going through a whole dissertation about how he wanted to be in this division, how he wanted the hardest road up the mountain as a head coach, and how he, obviously respected Dan Campbell, how he really appreciated what Kevin O'Connell has done in Minnesota, and then the obligatory shot across the border to Green Bay. And I'm quite frank with you, I really enjoyed beating Matt LaFleur twice a year, which 2 times during his 3 seasons coordinating the Detroit Lions offense, he did. He did it in 2022 and 2024. And so he has a 5-1 record against Matt LaFleur, and he isn't afraid to puff that chest out. What I love about this, though, is it's stuck. It hit Matt LaFleur. Matt LaFleur and Ben Johnson don't have a relationship. This isn't me and you needling each other, at the end of a long week at Haugh Hall. These are 2 guys that don't really know each other that well. And Ben throws that shot, and it bothered Matt LaFleur immensely.
Here is LaFleur from the Bussin' with the Boys podcast.
You have beef with Coach Johnson?
I was waiting for this. I don't know Ben Johnson.
So do you have beef?
Do I have beef? I don't know Ben Johnson. I respect him as a football coach. He did a nice job.
Yeah, but do we not feeling the same thing right now?
Yeah.
But if you don't know him, why is it tight in here?
It's not tight. I'm not tight. I thought it was interesting.
What was interesting?
I thought the press conference was interesting, but I don't have beef with him. I don't get all into that stuff. I thought it was.
But you'll harness it.
He'll see the eye emojis after a win. You'll send.
I don't have his number, so that won't happen.
You gonna Jim Harbaugh him after a game?
No,
you beat him?
I would never do that.
Do you have the strength to do that?
I don't know. Probably not. Apparently not.
No, I'd never do that.
Grote, a week earlier during the NFL draft, Matt LaFleur was also on the Pat McAfee show, and he was complimenting the Bears, and he said, Chicago's done a nice job of adding talent to the roster, and you get a good football coach, as he said himself, in Ben Johnson. And so this is clearly landed with Matt LaFleur, and I'm here for it. I'm here for it because it's a shot that probably 9 times out of 10 isn't going to land, but it landed. And I love that Ben has the audacity to kick the Hornets' nest over, and I love that it's actually made Matt LaFleur a little bit uncomfortable.
My first reaction, though, when Ben Johnson said that was, you know not what you are saying right now. You don't.
Matt LaFleur 11-1 versus the Bears.
Mm-hmm. You don't know how this all goes in this town. The number of losses to the Packers, bad moments against the Packers.
Name one.
Yeah. Jay Cutler NFC title game back in the day. Yes. Randall Cobb. Which Randall Cobb play would you like to discuss?
Right. The blocked field goal last year. Aaron Rodgers, I own you. Aaron Rodgers in the opener of 2018 when the Bears were handily leading at halftime. Aaron Rodgers 67 other times over his time starting against the Bears.
I would say I hope Ben Johnson is able to keep his chin up when it comes to this. I hope that carries on because they come in here talking big and they walk out with their tails between their Green Bay legs.
But Levy, you mentioned Lovey, and Lovey did make that comment at his introductory press conference, and then he backed it up for years. You know, toward the end, it started to get away from him a little bit, but it was like, man, like this is the zest we need back in this Bears-Packers rivalry. The Bears won the finale in January. We know it didn't mean much at all in the context of the 2024 season, but it did give the Bears a moment, and it was a little bit of a signature moment for several of those guys: Cairo Santos, Caleb Williams, DJ Moore. You know, there was plenty to glean from that last meeting up there. And so if they can inject some meaning in this rivalry, let's just split. Bears go win one, Packers win one for the next 10 years. And let's let this LaFleur Johnson thing really like start to build up the friction and all of the sparks that you need it to have. But I love that the recipe's there for it. And I love that Ben's fearless enough to throw that out there. And I love that Matt is obviously bothered by it. Like he should be in a position like, I've beaten the Bears 11 to 12 times. Like, get away from me, Nat. Like just swat the Nat away and move on. But it's clear from multiple public interviews that it's irritated him. And I was talking to some folks down in West Palm during the owners meetings, and they indicated that comment, you know, what did LaFleur say there? It was interesting. Well, yeah, it got his attention, right?
Yeah.
And so like mission accomplished, I think, in some ways by Ben Johnson.
My favorite part is him saying, I don't even know Ben. I don't know Ben.
I don't have his number. I'm not going to text him the eyeball. Like there's clearly no relationship here. And I would love it if there was never a relationship here, because it just means that that rivalry, competitive friction is just intensifying.
What would be awesome is if Ben Johnson started taking shots at Jordan Love next.
Oh yeah. Like, it's been really cool to see DA take Jordan Love apart twice a year. Just keep doing it.
Man, yeah. Because I'm trying to think, man, like through the years, Bears players that have taken the rivalry serious enough to speak out. Justin Jones used to do that, the former Bears 3 technique.
And then they get beat twice.
Jaquan Brisker, after the Bears lost the season finale last year, was ripping on every wide receiver, calling them talentless, basically. Do you remember that?
I do, right? Like there's a long bulletin board, and most of the time the Packers don't respond, and they're just like, whatever, like we've beaten your ass for a quarter century. And Rodgers would, you know, do the belt, and then Rodgers would go into the southwest corner of the Soldier Field end zone and tell the people that he owns them. And there was just no trump card. And maybe there's something here, but like, I'm sure you grew up with the kid in the neighborhood who would see a beehive and wasn't afraid to throw the football right at it. Like, oh, let's see that.
It scared the hell out of me, man.
No matter how reckless it is, you just do
it.
And I kind of like that Ben's got that in him now. Obviously, the goal is to back it up and to create to make this storyline go for a long time. I'll give you a little sneak peek, because later in the week we're going to do something that we did last year on the Score Airwaves. It's going to
Bonanza.
No, it's going to be a mock schedule.
Oh, and so the Wiederer mock schedule. Yes,
I'm giving you one window that I'm opening up to the mock schedule. I've got Bears Packers primetime week 2.
Oh, of course. I like it. Okay,
let's go.
So Dan Wiederer has previewed his mock schedule, which we did last year as well. Adding just one more thing to the Bears Packers, I do remember now when I put the Brisker stuff on Twitter, Aaron Jones of the Packers got in on it. Have you ever had a player get in on your tweet? Not necessarily trash talking, but just commenting on a tweet or retweeting something in your long, illustrious Dan Wiederer wide-eye career?
I'm sure I have. Nothing is popping to mind right off the top, and it's always like jarring, because then you're like, oh yeah, these guys are on here also, and they're right here in the middle of the conversation.
Oh yeah.
What did Aaron Jones say?
Oh, it was in response to Jaquan Brisker ripping the receivers. I don't remember specifically what he said. Something like anti Brisker. Like, what are you talking about? You guys just lost the game. I can go back and look. Maybe for the next episode, mock schedule, and I'll go back to my old Twitter account, which is dormant still, just sitting there. I don't know if you know this about me, Dan, but I lost my Twitter a couple of years ago.
I did know that, and you've got like this other one that I tag you in every once in a while. I don't even know what it is.
It's weird. It's at Grote Sports. Nobody believes it's me. It's a real mess, but I guess whatever. But I'll go back and I will check specifically what that was. So things to look forward to in our next episode of Take the North,
which will be fun.
Yeah, I think that will be fun. So we're looking forward to the rookie minicamp this week. We'll definitely be reporting on that, telling you what's going down, and looking forward to the OTA season and everything else. I think that's probably going to do it for us here today, Dan, unless there's anything else. You've shared a lot today, man. I feel like you have emptied the tank, and I appreciate it.
I mean, I took you to Czechoslovakia. I took you to Windsor, Canada.
Yeah.
We went up to Green Bay for a little bit. This has been quite an episode.
You don't owe us any more. For Dan Wiederer of the Chicago Tribune, for the executive producer of the Take the North podcast, Adam Studzinski, I am Mark Grote. Thanks for watching and listening to the Take the North podcast.
Great talk. See you out there.